What's going on, FA Nation? It is Tuesday, and we are here with an AFC playoff preview. I'm your host, Jen Piacenti, joined by Jon Impemba. We're not just talking fantasy football. We're talking football. We're talking playoff football. We're going to talk about playoff leagues, and we're going to start off with some news right away. Jon, first off, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Regular season's over. Now we're in on the playoffs. So, fantasy football being done with, but there's just so much more that you can do with the playoffs as well. There's fantasy football playoff contests, there's pick'em, there's bowl thing, there's all this stuff that you can do during the fantasy football playoffs. So though the season may have ended, there's still much more to come.
Much more to come. One of our favorite playoffs is the MyFFPC. Check that out. They have a $500,000 contest. They have another $100,000 contest. Entry fees range from $35 to $200. You can go over there and get yourself a team. Super simple. I know there are other leagues going around. I believe Scott Fish has a league. A few others I'm in. Anyway, lots of fun. Still lots of things to be played. Also, we can just bet the games and player props. We're going to talk about all these things at Fantasy Alarm in the next few weeks. But let's start off with the big news today because it could affect all of these. And that is the Cleveland Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski and two additional members of the coaching staff and two players who are yet unnamed are now positive for COVID-19. So is this did the Steelers do this? Do they purposely infect the opposing? No. I mean, we know there's been an issue with the Browns. Right now, last I checked on FanDuel Sportsbook, which was within the last hour, Pittsburgh was favored by 6. Do you think this line is going to change at all now that special teams coordinator Mike, I believe it's Prefer, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name, will be acting as head coach?
I mean, I don't think anything's going to change. I think their game plan is their game plan, right? The Browns offense is pretty straightforward. We'll have to see who's missing from it. It's Chubb, it's Hunt, run the football, manage the game with Baker, and don't turn it over. But I mean, Pittsburgh on the other side of that, they're going to be prepared and ready. So it's an uphill battle for sure, missing your head coach and staff. But I also feel like, he is not available to be in the on the sidelines, but they're not game planning without them. Their team is still going to be together for the game planning aspect of it, but it's certainly a disadvantage.
Now, I know they said that at least one wide receiver was on this list. We don't know who it is yet, but let's say it's someone like Jarvis Landry. These are the things. And then there's contact tracing, of course. And we've seen this happen before, like with the running back room for New Orleans last week. Basically, they lost their entire room. So this is news. Obviously, we have to keep our eyes on. I assume we'll know more over the next 24 to 48 hours. But let's assume it's just Stefanski that's out. It's a wide receiver that's, not a starter. How do you feel about that 6-point spread? Do you think it will be the Steelers?
Yeah, I don't expect the Browns to win this game. I didn't expect them to win this game to begin with. Going on the road, I still believe in the Steelers defense. I thought the Browns defense was hit or miss, good against, what is the one thing we've always said about Cleveland this year? They're good against bad teams, bad against good teams. They were able to outscore Baltimore, but Baltimore still hung a big number on their defense. In Pittsburgh, while they're having their troubles, with catching the football, that passing attack is still good enough, I think, to do some damage against that Browns secondary. And if, that offense isn't able to move the football for Cleveland, that defense maybe creates some turnovers, it's just shorter field. So though they're a divisional game and though the Browns have played better while the Steelers have sort of stumbled a little bit at the end of the year, I'm still thinking that Pittsburgh's going to take this one and cover that spread.
Do you think home field advantage matters at all in this one?
I do think a little bit. I don't remember if they have fans or not. I don't think they do in Pittsburgh, but it's still a different stadium. The wind blows differently. You're not sleeping in your own bed. The turf is different. There's a whole bunch of different things that you have when you're not home versus away. So I think it may play a little bit of a factor for sure.
So let's look at these two teams. So for Cleveland, they've actually surrendered a whole lot of points to opposing wide receivers. So I look at this and I think, wow, is this a game, when I'm picking players, say for my playoff team, do I like Deontay Johnson? Do I like Chase Claypool? Do I like Juju Smith-Schuster? And how do I feel about the run game for Pittsburgh? Do you have any interest in these players and how would you prioritize them?
No, I don't really have interest in the running. I mean, we've just seen them be, so inconsistent all season long. You can't trust James Conner. You can't trust Jalen Samuel, Snell, McFarland. So no, I'm completely out on this running game. And it was funny, doing Alarm After Hours with Justin Fensterman last night. We were talking about the Steelers running back situation and what they could do to possibly improve on it. And I was suggesting maybe they go sign Aaron Jones this offseason because, Connor isn't really a fit for them. Jones can basically give them what Bell had given them in years prior. And if you're going to extend Big Ben's, career a little bit longer, you need someone that he can rely on. And with Jones get to have a contract in Green Bay, I thought that'd be a great fit. I think Connor's done. Injury prone again, inconsistent performances, hasn't been able to get anything moving. None of the backs that they have behind him don't really inspire any confidence in me, even though they used, I think it was like a 4th round pick on McFarland this year. I think it's more of a filler. Nothing that I saw when he had the opportunity stuck out. So no, I'm a complete fade on the Steelers backfield.
Yeah, I agree. And Cleveland run defense actually the 9th best. So I actually went myself and ranked the 14 teams as far as how they were regular season. And Cleveland is pretty good versus the run. I wouldn't want to run most teams running backs against them, but wide receivers, I'm totally fine to play. I'm also fine to play quarterbacks against them. However, do you really see any real upside for Big Ben?
I do. I see there's some upside still for Roethlisberger here because, again, he led the league and I think it was pass attempt. I think he led the league in pass attempts this year. He came back and he was throwing as much as ever. I love the receivers that he has in that group still. They just need to hold on to the football, obviously, but Juju and Deontay and Claypool has been amazing as a rookie this year, and I'm a big fan of Ebron as well when he can hold on to the football. It's just holding on to the football has been their biggest problem. They've, one of the, their receivers have led the league in drops. So as a team, they were among the league leaders in drop passes this year. And that's what always sort of, I think, has hindered a little bit of their offensive flow because they'll get in a groove and all of a sudden 2 drop passes, it's 3rd and long and they're punting. But I don't think that's something that I'm going to, hold against Big Ben, and I would have no problem using him.
Okay, I like it. Now let's flip over to the other side. I think Chubb is always a must play. Do you feel any compulsion to play any of the receivers for Baker Mayfield? My guess is, to me, I look at it, I think, maybe Austin Hooper, someone that's a safety valve.
Assuming he's not the one who got COVID.
Exactly, because I believe it's a tight end and a wide receiver, right? They have plenty of tight ends. They have certainly a deep depth there. Yeah. But who do you like on the Cleveland side?
Yeah, the problem really is that, the Steelers secondary is, pretty strong there. They have Minka Fitzpatrick and Hayden and guys like that back there. I would trust probably Jarvis Landry more than anybody. Hooper, for sure, I think, given his recent target workload, has made a lot of sense as well. Higgins, I'm not sold on. I know he's looked good at the end of the year. He's definitely a downfield threat. But I feel like with their safety help that they have back there with Fitzpatrick, that could cause maybe some problems. And again, we're not Baker fans. I understand how well he performed in certain games this year. Right. I understand how well he performed in certain games this season, and he definitely looked better in matchups where I thought he would have a tougher time. Again, that game against Baltimore, yes, he performed better than I expected, but they scored 80,000 points combined. No team was playing defense that night. So I don't know. I don't know if I could trust Baker to throw consistently against his defense deep. So for me, I take the underneath routes and give me Landry, give me Hooper.
Okay, so I think we're both picking Pittsburgh in this game, but do you have any desire to take Cleveland plus 6 points?
No, I don't think so. Again, I am not, maybe it's just because I think that there's still the Browns when it all comes down to it, and this is, I'm happy that they've made it as far as they've come this year. Nick Chubb, I think it is an amazing talent. Kareem Hunt is fantastic. I think there's some building blocks there for that organization. I think they benefited from having one of the best schedules in the NFL this season. They were able to take advantage and beat those teams that were bad this year. And that's what you're supposed to do. There's a reason why they made the playoffs, and we were listening to the Giants complain about not getting in at 6-10 because, the Eagles sat their quarterback. Well, maybe you should have won more than 6 games. So the Browns did their job. They won the games they're supposed to win, put themselves in position to make the playoffs. Congratulations, you're there. I don't think you're there yet, though. So I think they're a first-round exit.
All right, let's talk about the game that I think has the most possibility for upset. You may or may not agree. And it is Ravens-Titans. The line yesterday, the spread was 3.5. This morning, it's only 3. So I don't know if that means a lot of money's coming in on one side, but maybe there was news I missed. But it is now down to 3. So Titans +3 seems awfully tempting to me. I actually think the Titans can pull off an upset like they did last year. But let's talk about it. How do you feel about this Ravens-Titans matchup? Obviously, the Titans have King Henry, and obviously the Ravens have a surging Lamar Jackson.
Right. So we saw this matchup last year, and Tennessee pulled off the upset. And then no surprise that Derrick Henry is running over literally everybody at this point. And I think that's going to be a strategy that continues. Jen, I'll say this now. You are 1,000% right with Ryan Tannehill. I was 100% wrong. Tannehill was
wait. Where's Petey Stitz? Petey.
Yeah, he'll cut this. We'll
the
get
only thing I've been right about all year, probably.
Yeah. So you were you couldn't have been more right about Ryan Tannehill. I had little faith in him being able to repeat the performance that he had last year. He did it in spades. He even added more rushing touchdowns, much to my dismay as a Derrick Henry owner. All those times he poached scored from him this year. So I think his improvement, his consistency there is fantastic. A.J. Brown's been great. We saw Corey Davis look better this year. Jonnu Smith, when asked to be a receiver, was fantastic. And then Derrick Henry's there. So I'm still going to go Tennessee in an upset. I don't think much defense is going to be played here. I know there's going to be no defense being played by Tennessee. But, I think, Baltimore on face value, they've been given a lot more credit or name value rather as a strong defensive unit. And they definitely have been against certain teams. But we've also seen them giving up a lot of points. We've seen teams run on them, and it's cold. It's going to be a ground and pound game. And I think eventually Derrick Henry is just going to wear them down. On the flip side of that, you do have that impressive running game by Baltimore. And I love that they've just cut out Mark Ingram from that. It's now a two-man show. It's Dobbins getting 60%. It's why am I blanking on his name? Gus Bus there. Gus Edwards getting 30% of the carries, and then Lamar Jackson ran for 1,000 yards again. So that threat is going to be there. And you can definitely run on this Titans defense. So I think that's what's going to end up being. If there's one maybe wild card to pay attention to, it's the fact that Marquise Brown ended the season with 6 touchdowns in 6 games, I think it was. So if they're starting to connect a little bit more, Andrews is still there. I think it's going to be a very competitive game, but I still think this is a game that Tennessee's going to pull out. I think ultimately I trust them to make fewer mistakes or keep a consistent roll going than Baltimore. I could be wrong, but that's just the way I'm leaning.
So it's interesting. I'm feeling the exact same way, John. We're in agreement here. Obviously, we can both be wrong. But another little quirk here, I've noticed if Baltimore doesn't get out to a lead and a pretty substantial lead, they just don't function that well. And that it's very easy for Tennessee to start out with a lead and then Baltimore to struggle. And Tennessee is more threatening, as you sort of alluded to, both ways. Certainly, obviously, they have a massive ground game, but Tannehill has actually been incredibly accurate. You've got A.J. Brown, you've got Corey Davis. And what we have seen Lamar kind of start to click again and connect with Hollywood Brown, which is so they both can do this. But I just feel like Tennessee is going to pull off the upset again. Now, I went and broke down, as I said, all 14 playoff teams and put them in order of their strengths and weaknesses for each position. And surprisingly, exactly what you said earlier, Baltimore's been giving a lot of credit for their defense. But if you look at the numbers, Tennessee has actually given up the second most points to opposing running backs. Okay, we knew that. Mm-hmm. Baltimore's given up the 6th.
Yeah.
So it's actually not as strong as it looks. And when you're talking about facing someone like Derrick Henry, we saw Cleveland Browns run all over them with Nick Chubb. I certainly think Derrick Henry could do the same thing. Yeah. I'm with you. I like the idea of the upset. Which players would you play in your playoff leagues from the Ravens?
I mean, I think you go Dobbins. I'm okay with Brown. Too. Because these playoff leagues, you're only as good as your team's advance, right? So if I'm expecting Tennessee to win, it's tough to really overinvest in too many of them. You really need to hit on the one guy that maybe goes off for the most points. If you're really playing that boom upside. So, I think Marquise Brown could, if I really wanted to, be that sort of high upside play. Because, while he hasn't had those huge downfield connections just yet, the fact that he was able to score 2 touchdowns to finish the season, he is on that touchdown streak. and we know how bad Tennessee's defense is just altogether. If he goes and has a game where he catches 150 yards and 2 scores, like that could hold you over for a couple rounds if he ends up being eliminated. So again, it's not a strategy that I like using, but there's also, you don't have choices really. Sometimes you have to pick a player that's going to be eliminated, and you can't pick,
right.
So like that's a spot that I would definitely take a look, because I think he has that upside. Dobbins, for all that we like about him, he still never got the ton of volume that we wanted. He never had that like huge rushing game. I think would he have 1 or 2 games over 100 yards maybe this season. So like that was always a little bit limiting to him. Plus, you can't rely on him to score touchdowns either, because there is sometimes Edwards there taking scores. Lamar certainly runs them in. So if I'm picking a player for Baltimore, expecting I think they're going to lose, I'd probably go Hollywood Brown.
Okay, I like that. And to be specific, of the 14 teams in the playoffs, Tennessee has surrendered the most points to opposing quarterbacks, the second most points to opposing running backs, and the most points to opposing wide receivers.
Yeah, their defense is trash.
Their defense is trash.
Yeah, it's stunning because Mike Vrabel is a defensive coach, that their defense is so bad. But they just, I don't know. They just have no ability to play defense right now.
But I think what we are expecting is a lot of points in this game, right? We're expecting a high points total.
Yeah, what is the points total? What's the Vegas number?
I have not. I think it was 50.5. I could just be completely
55.
making
55.
55.
Yeah.
Up
a half a point from the open at 54.5. And this is what I like though. Tennessee's only getting 3 points here, so like they're expecting it to be a close and high scoring game, and those are, my biggest thing when taking underdogs is I want them to be at least within a field goal. That was my thing all season long, doing the best bets articles over on Wager Alarm, is if I'm gonna bet an underdog, I want them to be within a field goal, because that means that Vegas thinks they're at least hanging around. If they're hanging around at the end, one thing goes one way or the other, and all of a sudden they're covering that for you. So I'll take a 3-point spread here and take Tennessee and think that they may pull off the outright win.
It's a lot more enticing than 3.5. I mean, that half point is a huge difference. All right, let's move along to the game that I think almost all of us agree. It's Buffalo, Indianapolis. So we've got the 2 seed versus the 6 seed, 7 seed. So we're pretty sure Buffalo is going to take this one. Yes.
Yeah, they're definitely maybe the hottest team going in here. And they're home. I think that plays a big part of it as well. The way that, again, the Colts have played defense this year, and the way Taylor has run the football at the end of the year, that those type of teams sometimes are able to pull off upsets in the playoffs against these sort of run and gun offense teams, because if you stop them, if your defense is good enough to slow down Josh Allen, and then you control the clock with the running game with Jonathan Taylor, you can pull off those upsets. You can pull off wins that way. Buffalo they've just been really strong. They got John Brown back. Diggs has been, unbelievable this year. Allen's been great. It's going to be a real test for them. I really do think it's going to be a strong test for them. I'm probably with you thinking Buffalo is going to pull this one off. I think this is just their year to, take that next leap in their progression. But it's going to be tough. I don't think, I see 6.5. I might take the Colts with the points on this one.
That's what I'm wondering. I do think the Bills will win, but I wouldn't shy away from taking the Colts plus the points. It could be closer than 6.5. I do think that the Bills are going to win, though. I think what we've seen from Josh Allen is this is a guy who suddenly looks like he can do anything. Now, last year in postseason, he did not look good. He really looked deer in the headlights in prime time. I don't think we're there anymore. Now he has Stephon Diggs. The only thing that worries me a little bit about the Bills team is they don't really have much of a run threat, except for Josh Allen himself, I guess. So that's the only thing that concerns me. But as far as quarterbacks go, I don't think there's any question. I trust Josh Allen more than I trust Phillip Rivers. So it's kind of, to me, a run game versus a passing game. I mean, Phillip Rivers can, but he just doesn't. Not the way that Josh Allen, with all his weapons. I mean, we just saw them. They just annihilated Miami on Sunday, and even with their backup squad. I feel like they're surging. I think this is going to be the Bills. Which players? I love Jonathan Taylor because, as you suggested, again, Buffalo, you can run on them. So, and I think they finally realized that Jonathan Taylor is where they need to go.
Yeah, I agree. And it's, it was funny, you look at those who drafted Jonathan Taylor in this year and they're like, oh, second half of the year is when we're really going to benefit from him. He'll take over. And that's sort of what happened. Now, we had the job all season long because of the injury there. But he was in a timeshare. He wasn't being used as much initially as we thought he was going to be. And then all of a sudden, I think it was like week 10 or whatever it was, came around. They're just like, all right, it's your job now. And it's like 90 yards.
Now they win.
Oh, like, yeah, and they're just hammering him down the stretch. And he's looked fantastic. And a lot of people who thought maybe he was a bust or, were taking early victory laps on Jonathan Taylor, I think ultimately we're wrong. You're in for over 1,000 yards as a rookie. I think he had like 7 touchdowns, probably would have had more if not for some of those games where like inexplicably Jordan Wilkins was getting carries and things like that, So no, I think Taylor's a real weapon in this game. Like you said, you can run on Buffalo. It's a good way to control the clock, keep that offense off the field for Buffalo, and play defense. So I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, Buffalo's stronger against the pass than they are versus the run for sure. What about the other side of this game? Who do you like for Buffalo? There's so many people to choose from.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you're going to want to go Diggs, of course. It's hard to trust the running backs, but I think Moss is still the running back you want here. He's led the team in carries in recent games. He's been scoring the touchdowns over Singletary. So I think Moss would be the back you'd take. John Brown being back, it definitely hurts the other receivers there. I know Gabriel Davis still had like the 2 catches for 100 yards in week 17 with Brown back, but you can't really trust him as much anymore. Beasley takes a little bit of a hit with Brown back. So I'm probably going to go Diggs and Moss. And if I was picking a quarterback, of the AFC going in that direction, I guess Allen, would probably be, I might go, if we're talking playoff contest, I might still go Big Ben, but Allen's probably my number 2.
Really? Okay. I like it. All right. So basically what we've said is this is how John and I have predicted today the brackets to go. We believe next weekend we will see Kansas City versus Tennessee because Tennessee may upset. And we believe we will see Buffalo versus Pittsburgh. So let's break down these two just because we're trying to work through it because we're thinking about our playoff teams. If that is the case, who do you like, Kansas City or Tennessee?
I'm still. I don't see anybody stopping Kansas City. I think that offense, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, they were there last year and they won it, and they didn't take much of a hit, if any. So for me, I don't see anybody touching Kansas City. I think Kansas City goes ahead and wins that matchup. And then if you're looking at Pittsburgh and Indy, I think this. You know what? I think Indy might pull out. I do. If Indy's going to...
I'm actually looking at Pittsburgh-Buffalo. I think Buffalo's going to win. You think it'll be Indy?
Okay, yeah. Well, I was saying, like, if we think that they do upset Buffalo, if it's Buffalo-Pittsburgh, I would go Buffalo as well. I think they can outscore them. So...
What if it's Buffalo-Indy? Who do you think it would be? I'm sorry. If it's Indy-Pittsburgh, I'm sorry.
Indy-Pittsburgh, I would still go Indy. I just like that Colts defense. I think their Colts defense and their ability to run the football there is really something that it's going to be able to help them control that football game. Plus, like we saw T.Y. Hilton get a little bit better. Zach Pascal just came on when he came back from injury and looked good. So, I think, you used to be able to use Nyheim Hines in a passing attack. I like Indy if they're able to get by Buffalo. I think that they could win a couple rounds there. I think ultimately everybody's playing to lose to Kansas City, but if you want the most appealing game for the AFC Championship game, it's Buffalo KC. Like that's the game everybody wants to watch.
I think that's what we're all rooting for because that'll be the most fun game. I actually think if Kansas City faces Tennessee, that they could get upset again. I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. I think Tennessee can upset Kansas City. I think if Baltimore gets through, it's Kansas City, no question. I think Kansas City owns Baltimore. Their game plans just don't work. And Baltimore can only win versus Kansas City if they were to get up way early, and they just can't usually. Right. I just think they're owned by Patrick Mahomes. So if it's Baltimore, Kansas City goes through. If it's Tennessee, I think there's a possibility for an upset because we've got 2 teams that can win however they need to. Probably still Kansas City. If I were putting money on it, still Kansas City.
But you're right. Again, having Derrick Henry is such the X factor, I think, especially, Kansas City can't stop the run. So, if they're just not able to, prevent Tennessee from scoring touchdowns,
versus the run in my listing of the 14 teams. So Derrick Henry, I mean, now Pat Mahomes can turn around and sling it back. It doesn't matter in half a second. But of course, a weak Tennessee secondary, that would be a huge amount of points. That's going to be a high point total game. All right, if it's Buffalo Pittsburgh, I'm taking Buffalo over Pittsburgh. But I actually think that's also going to be a good game. Just the main thing being that Big Ben isn't as healthy, but neither of these teams really have much of a run game. But if it's Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, I still think it's Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's possible. I just look at, we've seen that offense struggle at times because of, their troubles. And that defense there with the Colts it's just really good. And I can see that causing them problems.
So if we have a Kansas City Buffalo, which is what we think could happen, what we all wish would happen just for the fun of it, is it Kansas City? I do.
I think Kansas City rolls through. It'd be a great story for Buffalo. I have a lot of friends that are actually Bills fans. So, they were ecstatic this year that they won the division and, everything that they're doing, and they're thrilled with Josh Allen's progression. And, it makes sense. Allen got them to the playoffs last year, won a playoff game. Or, no, they ended up losing that game.
No, they lost to Houston.
Yeah, they ended up losing that game. They had a lead, though, and then they ended up blowing it. But,
yes, he totally got deer in headlights. It was on him.
Yeah,
it was on him.
But he came in this year, career year, and I think they're ready to take that next step. And we'll see. It'll be a very fun game to watch. I still think ultimately Tennessee, Patrick Mahomes, it's a quarterback league, and you have the best quarterback. So, if it comes down to the final drive, Mahomes is getting him down there to score. So that's just the way
so I think you're probably right, but I have to say, I'm not 100% confident in Kansas City. I feel like down the stretch, I think they have this issue of playing at the level of the team that they're playing, and they looked a little lazy and a little bored, and they've had a week off and whatever. So unless they get somehow fired up, now maybe their best chance of winning is actually playing a team like Buffalo, where they would have to play at a really high level.
I look at it more so as they weren't playing for anything. At that point, their seeding, I think their seeding was fairly locked up. They definitely had the division in hand. It's the regular season, the end of the regular season. What's, like you said, what's their focus really on at that point? When you get to the playoffs, I feel like we see those type of elite teams just they're ready to go. They're there. They're turning it on. I watched it for forever with New England. When it came to playoff time, they were there, they were winning, and Brady had them ready to go. And I think Mahomes is the best quarterback in football, and I think he's the same way. They have Kelsey, they have Hill, Le'Veon Bell, even, a guy that's, playoff battled and tested and hardened, he's a guy that I think they're going to lean on probably in the playoffs more. So I think they're going to be good and strong, and I see them coming out to defend their title.
Okay, so this is an AFC preview, but just really quickly, quick, who's going to be in the Super Bowl? Kansas City and?
Well, I'm going to go Tampa Bay because I bet Tampa Bay to win the Super Bowl preseason. So DraftKings keeps on giving me the cash out option. I'm going to hold and see how far we can get that one. But, I got some money to come my way if Tampa Bay is able to win the Super Bowl. If they get to the Super Bowl, I'd probably cash out. So we're just going to hope that they can make it their way through it. It's a tough spot for Tampa Bay, though. I mean, they're going into Washington.
They need Seattle to win in order for this to work out for them. That's what I think.
Yeah.
They need Seattle to beat the Rams so that therefore they play. I'm looking so that. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how this works. I think
so they don't
want to meet up with Green Bay too early is what I think.
Right. No, I agree with you. You don't want to get them too early because it's going to be a tougher matchup that way. I mean, they're going to have tough matchups all season long. I mean, they're Redskins, Washington football team defense. They're a really strong defensive unit. They have to go on the road, face down. We've seen Tampa Bay struggle against good defenses. Chicago, Giants, those teams gave them some trouble. I think Antonio Brown's looked great towards the end of the year. Mike Evans supposedly was good to go back at practice, so no worries there. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm going to go Tampa Bay just because I got a bet on them to win the Super Bowl.
Kansas City, Tampa Bay. This who John has. I have Buffalo. I have Green Bay right now. I'm thinking of switching it to New Orleans because of the path that I see maybe happening when I think about who's going to win.
Sure.
But right now, I have Buffalo, Green Bay. So you guys have some fun with your playoff drafts this week. There's a lot of different formats to play. Some of them are just like one and done. Some of them you get to redraft. Lots of different formats. If you haven't found one to play, like I said, check out my FFPC. I know there's a $35 entry on there. There are other leagues around. Put out a tweet, send us a message. We'll try to refer you to one if you want to play. And otherwise, John, what are you doing the rest of the day? NBA?
5 games tonight. So we'll have the live stream later today at 6 o'clock. Sean Mitchell, James Grande. I'll be producing that. I'm writing the value vault. That'll be out shortly after this. So, just NBA DFS rest of the week, ready to go.
You guys were about to have sports back in full force. I'm already starting to think about cracking open some baseball research. Maybe next week after I draft my playoff teams. Okay, guys, thanks for joining us. We'll be back same time tomorrow with another Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk. We'll catch you next time.